What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for another album review. Today I'm going to be talking about the sophomore studio album by New York-based rapper Joey Bada. This one is called ALL-AMERIKKAN BADA, and it's stylized with 3 Ks and America. 2 A's, 3 Ks, and America, the way he says it on the album in one of his verses. And I really like that because it's obviously shedding light on something that's not a new issue, but something that is still ongoing, with hate groups in America, obviously the KKK being the 3 Ks in America that's represented, and just the way that black people in general are still looked down upon and not totally accepted despite what they've contributed to society. In fact, more than white people in some places, but it's still not recognized, maybe just because of the color of their skin. And I love how political Joey isn't afraid to get on this album. Through and through, this is politics, it's race relations, police relations, and just the state of things in our world right now. He's calling for people of color to come together and actually represent something not just violent, but something smart against what maybe the government has in mind. And obviously there's some theories on here. I might not totally agree with every single thing, especially on his final verse on American Idol, where he goes out on a limb and says some pretty crazy stuff about the government and them wanting to control certain aspects, and who knows. So there's some scary stuff out there. There's books that have been written talking about the future of America and how things could be with a controlling government. Maybe it is something that could be possible, but Joey really dives into it on that verse in particular. It sounds like I have a problem with this album. I really don't. In fact, I love that song, and almost every single one on here, he hits the nail on the head more often than not with his lyrical content. Land of the Free is something that has such a smooth vibe, but an important message to it. When Joey Bada described this album, he described it like vegetables, basically. His music being strong, good for you, and kids these days just want candy, and I could not agree more. Holy shit, all of this just mumble rap, whisper garbage, auto-tune bullshit that has no message other than do drugs, fuck women, go to the club. What are we supposed to take away from this? To its core, this is a hip-hop album, and I love that about it, but at the same time, he's also influenced by a lot of outside genres, everything from jazz, reggae, dancehall, and just pure hip-hop, kicking it back to some references to stuff like Nas and Biggie, and even as modern as Lil Wayne. And I love that he has all of these influences in his pocket, and he's able to apply them to different scenarios to make this album sound fantastic. Devastated was premiered about a year ago as the lead single from his upcoming studio album, and I am glad that that made it onto the album. It's got such a great uplifting vibe to it, and I don't want to say that all of this album, All-American Badass, is just totally down in the dumps politics where he's constantly preaching at you. There are moments that shine through, and he also offers hope and a message. He actually has something to preach here, something to talk about, and I really enjoy that, obviously on moments like Devastated, where he talks about how he wasn't blowing up, his career wasn't taking off, but now he's sitting in his early 20s looking back, reflecting, and very grateful just how he is able to accomplish so much. And maybe he's not the biggest rapper out there, but he is poised to take over the game, and I love that he has that positive message there. Obviously on the track with J. Cole that comes near the end of this record, still don't understand why he gets so much hate. In fact, I think he is a very talented rapper, not the best by any means, but still he comes through with a very different verse that is very conscious, very, I guess, poetic in a way. It's kind of like a spiritual type reflection track that sees them talking about peace, what they want to happen, what is happening with just prisons being overcrowded, people just being put in jail cells almost from the time that they're born just because of the color of their skin. But I like how they meditate here and kind of trade verses and have such a perfect flow. In fact, the vibe and just the bass groove of this, it almost feels like a Fiona Apple track, kind of jazzy, soulful, downplayed, a nice little piano riff on that, and I love it. It only took 2 full listens of All-American Badass for me to just go ahead and hop on Amazon and order a CD copy for myself, if that says anything about the quality of the music right there. The production is impeccable. I love how Kirk Knight comes in on some of these tracks. He's a very young producer, but he gets that you can mix hip-hop elements, a nice beat, but also throw in some live instrumentation in there as well. And I love seeing some guitars flare up here and there, and obviously some bass lines that aren't just pounding in your face, just full throttle, although there is one moment on a track that Kirk Knight is actually featured on as an artist and not just a producer, which is kind of ironic considering I was just commending his production work, but it is a little bit bass heavy on Ring the Alarm. I love the track and it's got some great verses. In fact, I love the third verse where they're trading back and forth. Love the featured guests, Nick Caution and Kirk Knight on that one. They really trade flows perfectly. It's seamless, but there's some bass going in the background of that one, and it just comes out so harshly, it just seems a bit out of place, and it's just like one note that pops up here and there. It's aggravating me. Forget that. That's mainly a small complaint, something that doesn't detract me from enjoying the song as a whole. In fact, Ring the Alarm is one of my favorites. I love the featured guest on it, and I think Joey absolutely crushed his verse on it as well. The perfect follow-up to Rockabyebaby, which features Schoolboy Q. Holy shit, that's the collaboration I didn't even know that I needed. I'm a big fan of Q, and he comes in on this verse and just kills it. Spitting fire here, and I love it. He's pretty much calling out people who maybe got imprisoned or got in jail, and it's just like nobody's even coming to visit you or make the calls anymore. And it's something that is really just a straight fire verse and rivals Joey's on this one, almost showing him up. But they both have great moments there. Rockabyebaby, definitely one of my favorites. I love it. It sounds very almost Kendrick Lamar-ish, and that's something that I can kind of say. I don't want to say that Kendrick obviously invented the jazz rap thing and implementing other styles like that, giving it a nice bass groove and that sort of thing, but obviously he is the most prominent in recent years, and I can't help but compare in places. There's another big moment, Why Don't You Love Me, Miss America, that really stands out in that regard as well. Such a subtle but nuanced bass groove on that one that I can't help but just fall into. It's got such a soulful vibe to it, especially with the reverb placed on the backing vocals. Tell me why you don't love me, and he goes into it, and he actually has such a great message that he has to get across here. I love how he's really comparing it. It would almost seem like a relationship at first, but the more you listen to the lyrical content, you realize he's talking about the black man in America. Tell me why you don't love me. Why don't you respect me? Why don't you give me credit where credit is due? And he talks about this almost through the eyes of something else. But the more you listen to it, like I said, the more you start to see that the message is very, very clear. All-American Badass starts off so strong. In fact, I love the first 8 songs pretty much front to back. There aren't really many issues that I have with any of those songs, but especially the first 4, they just have a certain spirit about them. They're very kindred, they have a certain vibe, and they nail it. He starts off with this message, Good Morning America, once again with 3 Ks, just like on the album title, and American Idol as well, the final track. And on this one, he's basically giving a wake-up call to his brothers and saying, look, I realize that it's okay to be like lazy and just do our thing sometimes, but at the same time, there's a point where we have to reach, where we have to realize that if we don't do anything about the way that we're being treated, or just do something to be smarter about it, the way that we protect each other, and the way that we change people's perception in general, then what's gonna happen 10, 20, 30 years from now? What's our future? And he starts to reflect there, and that crosses perfectly into the second song, For My People, which definitely, once again, has a very laid-back vibe in terms of its instrumental, but hits with its potent lyrical message. And that one translates perfectly into my favorite song on this entire project, Temptation. This song is phenomenal. I cannot rave enough about the production here. Just the way that it comes across so smooth. It's almost like a gospel meets rap, but it doesn't feel forced whatsoever. It's not too soulful, it's not too hip-hop, and it almost has a trace of rock in there as well, especially with that guitar part scattering all across the chorus. It is the perfect mix, and the first time that I heard this come on, I really can't take it no more. My hands were up, I swear to God. I was ready to dance. It starts off with the child talking about the color of their skin, how they don't like how they're treated differently, and it closes with that as well. But on the track itself, he seems to be speaking of just the temptations in life in general, to maybe fall off, to be lazy, to just mess around and that sort of thing. And it builds up to this awesome, unforgettable hook that Joey just kills. I love that he handles so many of the hooks himself. Doesn't have to get a featured guest on there or anything like that. That just is such a cop-out to me, and I love that Joey's handling it here, especially on Temptation. Seriously, if you don't hear anything else from the entire record, try this one. Near the end of this album, Joey really starts to channel his Jamaican heritage. It's something that he's paid homage to in the past. Chronix actually appeared as a featured guest on Before the Money, Before the Cash, however you want to say it. It was a project that I liked. In fact, it was one of my favorite albums of 2015. Some of those songs, like Me, really just stuck with me. Paper Trail as well. kept coming back to them over time, and that's what made me so excited for Joey's second upcoming album. Chronix is back here on a track called Babylon, which I do find very entertaining. I think his part is great, and Joey comes across very sly, very smart on this song. I love the production on it. It's different, it leans in a different way, and the album really started to transition right after Ring the Alarm. We feature Styles P on Super Predator. Not a huge favorite for me. It's something that just kind of doesn't find the right balance. And then we have Babylon with Chronix, where I start to enjoy the vibe a little bit more. Then he brings on J. Cole for Legendary and closes it out with American Idol. It's something that's just all kind of a weird section, a mishmash of sounds, everything from that reggae guest, and of course the instrumentation, and just even the wording, some of the words that he says on there, like Badman. I know that's the worst Jamaican accent ever, forgive me, I'm never gonna do that again. And of course, Tings. Take note, Drake. Okay, can we just talk about that for a minute? Can we just talk about how laughable Drake has become at this point? Anyways, this is a great album from Joey Bada. I'm really enjoying the majority of it. There's so many songs that I really do love here and truly respect and appreciate. Great lyrical content, hip-hop at its core, at its heart. It has the guts and it has a message to it, and that's what's missing from so much of hip-hop today. And of course, this album is dropping the same day as Kendrick Lamar. There's just too much to process. I'm glad this leaked online a little bit ahead of time, so I had some time to digest it, get a review out before I started listening to Kendrick. Now, me obviously personally enjoying this album, I'm gonna have to give this thing a strong 4 out of 5. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. If you've heard it, if you're really anticipating it, what are some of your favorites on the album? If you want to see my favorites and least favorites, it's all in the description down below. If you're able to, help me out on Patreon, because all the advertisers are fleeing. It's that link over there in the corner, and if you would like to see another hip-hop review, click right here, or my review of Joey's first album, click right here. Other than that, my social media found in the description, and I'll see you very soon right here on ARTV. A lot of albums coming out this week.